It is Monday morning, and normally I would already have a video out today. It's Monday afternoon. Actually now it is 2:20 in the afternoon. I would normally have filmed a video on Sunday, and I did film a video on Sunday, and then I would have released it this morning as my Sunday Squirrels. However, when I logged into my computer last night, brought all the footage into my computer, there was no sound. I left my mic out in the kitchen a couple of days ago and hadn't used it for a couple of days. And then when I went looking for it, one of the kids had put it on a shelf. But I would say in the time between that, something had been spilt on it and it wasn't working. So the camera, when I turn my camera on and when I turn my mic on, the camera comes up and says, the DJI Osmo sound is at whatever percentage and it's connected. And so I checked that, but then that's all I did. But it wasn't picking up any sound. So it appears that the actual mic unit itself is fine. It's the lapel mic that goes onto the mic unit. So normally I have a lapel mic plugged into this so that this sits in my pocket and the little lapel mic just sits on my collar. I actually bought it mostly because when I'm in public, if I'm trying to film, it's a lot less in your face, having the little tiny lapel mic, but also easier to have the mic in my pocket to turn on and off. But it looks like either something's gotten into the port on this where the lapel clips in, or the lapel itself is damaged. I don't know yet. I haven't done any more troubleshooting other than to figure out that this is still working. So now comes the tricky part. For a start, there was a couple of days of footage that have no sound, and some of that was the Ninja Creamy stuff, which I've been spreading out over multiple days so that I can show you the ice cream spun up, as well as the different recipes and the way that we make it and things like that. So I'm going to have to come back to looking at that and we will see. But yesterday's video was, there's all this chatting that I did face to face, which is fine. I can read lips. I have impaired hearing and grew up with some hearing impaired friends, so lip reading is pretty easy, so I can actually look at what I've done and get the gist of what I've said. But a lot of the footage, I'm not looking at the camera, am I? A lot of the footage is pointed at my hands. And of course I know vaguely what I said, but the problem is that when you try and re-record something, you question whether you said it last time or this time, and then have to go backwards and forwards a lot, and it's a lot less natural, and it's just frustrating having to re-record. But that's where we're at. So I have my laptop out with me so that I can look at the footage that I took from yesterday, and then it's just going to be a bit more stilted than usual because I'm just going to pause and figure out what I need to go over and then come back and hopefully do some voiceovering for some of the actual footage where it's pointed at the bench, as much as I hate doing that because it's so time consuming, but I don't have much choice this time, so that's what we're going to do. So yeah, so you're going to have to bear with me. I'm looking at the laptop, and I think if I try too hard to capture how I spoke yesterday, it's just going to not work. So let me just try and do a bit of a normal catch up like I normally do, and we'll get maybe some voiceover of what I was baking. So yesterday I decided to bake some bread because we had bolognese for dinner. So it was going to be a nice simple day. Darryl was supposed to be at church twice yesterday. He didn't end up going because he wasn't feeling well and he didn't want to pass anything on to the old people's home, but he was supposed to be out, so I had pulled bolognese out to make a nice easy dinner, and then I was baking bread. So I decided to bake two different types of the baguettes that I've been doing. So I have a recipe for baguettes up on the website, and it's a very firm, tight, very similar to the garlic breads that you buy frozen in a supermarket. And what I then have recently done is tried to enrich the dough slightly to get more of a Subway style bread, the flatter, softer, looser crumb, sort of a higher hydration with a little bit of enrichment. And I've been really happy with them, but they end up spreading a real lot, and I've been having trouble getting sizing quite right. So then yesterday what I did was I did the standard one that I've been doing with the little bit enriched, and then I pulled the enrichment back a little bit to see if I could get sort of a happy medium between the two, and I was really happy with that. So I will share some of the footage of that, and I'll do some voiceovering while I share that. But the week had been really busy. I had baked a whole bunch of cakes for a friend. It was her mother-in-law's birthday, her 80th, I think. And so I baked a whole lot of cakes. I did a lemon drizzle cake with a lemon SMBC icing, and a chocolate fudge cake with a chocolate SMBC icing, and then a vanilla cake with a freeze-dried raspberry SMBC icing. I do forget though that my oven really isn't made for making lightweight vanilla cakes. It really just doesn't work because it's a commercial finishing oven. To maintain temperature, it's gas, and to maintain temperature, instead of just reducing and increasing the gas flow, it turns off and on, and it really just does not work for a sponge style cake, and I forget every time. And anyway, they still bake through, they still taste nice, but the texture is just not right. The top ends up kind of like caramelized and crunchy, and the cake itself ends up still spongy but dense. It's an odd texture. They still tasted nice, but they were not my best work, and that was a bit sad. I didn't even take any proper photos, so I'll put a couple of photos in here of what I did that I just took off the box as I was sending it to getting Darryl to drop it off. But I had that to do during the week, so which was fun but tiring, but fun. And so we did that during the week, and then I've been doing the Ninja Creamy videos, as I said, throughout the week, except that now I'm not going to have sound for some of them, so that's going to be a challenge, but we'll figure that out. Also through the week we have been doing, so Sonnet has that market this weekend. So I've been doing lots of 3D printing to figure out all the stuff for her key rings and stuff like that. And once she's done the market, what I might do is photograph a whole bunch of her stuff and we can offer it up for sale for her, and she can earn some pocket money for Christmas or whatever. But I've been printing a lot of other stuff that isn't necessarily going to sell, but it's going to fill the table up for her. But also some of the like little hexagonal containers for her to put her stuff in, and I'm printing a modular keyring stand at the moment. I'll try and get some photos to put in here when I do that. But I also have been designing the toilet roll tissue holders too, so I've got 4 designs that I'm completely happy and sold on with those. I want to try and get proper photos of them in the next couple of days, and then start getting them up so if people want to order them. And I've got a couple of finalized of the ball dispensers as well that just need proper photos taken as well, and then we can work out if anyone wants to order any of those. I'm making them anyway, they're for me as well, but people have expressed interest, so I'm only going to make them as people order them. So if I'm not going to have them in stock as such, you're going to order them and they'll be made within the week and then they'll be sent out, sort of thing, because it's not worth me holding stock, which was a little bit of an issue with last year's endeavour into the cups and the mugs and all the rest of it. I have a lot of stock left, and I need to do something with it, whether I just put some stickers on them and sell them cheaper as pre-made with the critters on them already, or I don't know yet, but we'll see how we go. There might be a few people around who weren't around last Christmas who might be interested in them that didn't get them last Christmas. We'll see, but I'll figure that out and we'll see how we go. The post has really been an issue. So the US post is still a little bit, I'm still working on it. I've got a couple of orders to go to the US and I'm having some problems. And Canada we've suspended all post to Canada at the moment, I think it is. But I also am having problems with the laser cutter. The lid to the laser cutter is like a red perspex to stop the refraction of the laser outside of the unit so it doesn't burn anyone. And it's like a red perspex and it's curved, and the cats climbed on it and popped the red perspex inwards on the lid, and that's fine, like it's repairable, but we can't get it to work, so I'm going to have to actually pull the entire lid apart to slide that piece of perspex back in. I need to make some sort of a stand over the top of it so the cats can't walk over it, because it's closed. There's nothing they can do to damage it unless they push that in. It also requires ventilation, so when you're lasering anything it creates fumes, and there's a ventilation pipe on it. And in winter we had it situated next to the back doors, the French doors, and I'd just crack the French doors open, I'd put the pipe out, and then I'd close the French doors again and it would vent outside. We had to move the table as it got into summer because now we're using in front of those. We're using those French doors, they're open all the time, so I can't vent it out there. So I've had to move the table elsewhere to find a window to use. It's been a little bit of a drama, and yeah, I've got a few orders outstanding that I've just haven't got there because it's been a drama. It really has. And I should have just shut the shop down. Honestly, I really should have, because I'm just not real set up at the moment, but I just left it running because it was easier to just leave it running, because I really thought I was going to get it up and going again for Christmas and stuff, and I don't know what I'm doing yet. I think I'll be pulling a whole lot of stock and just putting the 3D items up there just so that if people want to buy them, I'm limiting myself a little bit so that I don't get too inundated. We'll see how we go. I could do with the extra income over Christmas, but it's also the extra work, and I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how we go. Anybody who has an order outstanding, if there's something outstanding that you no longer want me to try and push to do, just let me know and I'll refund it. I don't have a problem with that either. The US shipping has been an issue, and we are using a third party now, Zonos or something, and I got a free account with them because I had a Business Australia Post account, but it's all a little complicated. I'm still working on it. We have also been working on, so Darryl and I, we convert the Dungeons and Dragons stuff, which we've discussed before. So we do conversions for Dungeons and Dragons. It is the tabletop game, but we convert the books and stuff that you'd play on a tabletop into a virtual world. So there is multiple different platforms. There's Roll20, Shard, Foundry, Mind Blank. There's more than that, but they're the main ones that we do. And we convert them into those for the people who write the book so that they can then sell the virtual product. Now, Darryl has always wanted to write and has written and been published in a few different places, especially to do with D&D stuff, but along with other stuff. And so we had the whole part of getting our, like, we have a business called Dragon Clan Studio that runs alongside our small footprint that we use for contractors and stuff for doing all this converting, and that's where the money that comes from the converting goes through and all that. But the plan was to write stuff as well, and have that, like, that is something else, that another side thing. As I've said lots of times, we have lots of little side things. Nothing needs to make huge amounts of money if they're all just making a little bit and we enjoy doing it. But anyway, Darryl has been having a bit of problems, like, getting motivated to get stuff done of our own stuff because we've had other work. And I think it was last week I was talking about how it's hard to do side hustles that don't earn money in the time that you could be doing something that does earn money. But anyway, we've been doing some work on our own stuff. So he wants me to do the art for it, which is also a delay because it takes me a lot longer to do art because I'm self-taught and I'm still very skeptical of my own work and things like that. And so sometimes it takes me a while to get a piece of art to the standard that I'm happy with, which is why I was so excited last year to sell all the stuff with the Australian animals on it. But what he decided to do was start a Patreon so that he could release this adventure or whatever, like every 2 months he could release an adventure and some critters and things like that, and have that accountability of having to get something out that often. We've started the stuff at the moment. We've got a couple of critters done, a couple of images, a couple of, he writes a lot faster than I can draw. But if you want to check it out, I'll put the link in the description. And this is one of the critters. This is a chombi, a chicken zombie is one of the things. He's done it sort of Halloween themed because that's the right time of year. And the next one we'll probably do Christmas themed, but we're doing them in a world called Done Under. So he's doing it Australian themed and he's really enjoying it. And I'm really happy for him to be really enjoying the writing and the creativity process. And hopefully I can get quicker at getting the art out for him. I'm doing a fairly simplified style of art for it so that it's easier to churn out the same style stuff and not get too frustrated with myself because I can't quite get it to look how I want. But we will see how we go, because me and my ability to trust in my own skills is pretty limited. Something else we've struggled with a little bit is the Ranger, so the ute that got repaired. So we did $5,000 worth of repairs a couple of weeks ago. When we put it in for repairs, we got a quote. They told us $5,000 all in. We should get another, 100,000 Ks out of the car. So we agreed, went ahead with it. When Darryl went and picked up the car, they let him know that the car also required a new transmission. They didn't tell us that beforehand. So we paid the $5,000 for the repairs, and they needed doing. The cost was there, the value, the $5,000 value of the repairs and everything was fine. They didn't overcharge us. They did what needed doing and everything else. But knowing that it was also going to need a whole new transmission may have altered our choice on getting those repairs done. I don't know. Anyway, it turns out it needs a whole new transmission. We've been waiting. They've managed to find a refurbed one and get it shipped out. And so now it is being repaired. It comes with a warranty for 100,000 kilometers. So theoretically, we should get another 100,000 Ks out of the car once we get the transmission in, but it is $3,800. Unfortunately, I just do not have it to pull from anywhere. Everything is a little tight in the lead up to Christmas, plus we've put a little bit of money back into the garden this year. I've been really slack with my video quantities for YouTube, so the income from there is a little bit down, so I'm going to have to borrow it, but we can't not have a ute. Not having it working has really shown us how much we need it. We badly need a hay trip for the chickens, and we can theoretically pull the trailer on the X-Trail, but the problem is that the X-Trail's all we've got at the moment, and we don't want to risk damage, because if we don't have that, we have nothing. So anyway, we're just going to have to get the Ranger repaired, so hopefully that will happen this week. It's a public holiday today, which I hadn't realised we were supposed to drop it in this morning, but they mustn't have realised it was a public holiday either. Though Darryl might have to check the water and do a couple of runs for water before he drops it in, because we won't have it for the week, which means that we can't fetch water. Again, the X-Trail could theoretically pull the water, but we have been hesitating to do that. The X-Trail is rated to tow the same as the Ranger, but yeah, anyway. So there's that. We also went into Bunnings on last week, so before, with the ute that is really not very much fun to drive. The transmission is horrible. You go into second gear and the whole car pulls back and goes clunk. It's really, really unpleasant. Also, the Ranger doesn't have any aircon, so as it gets hotter, it's really, that's no fun either. But anyway, Darryl had to go into an appointment in Toowoomba, so we went to Bunnings and we picked up the timber and stuff that we need for the roofing, for the patio and the front area. I did film that yesterday. I'd imagine that there's no sound. I'll show you some of it anyway though, or I'll go back out again. We'll see how we go. We got all the timber for that. Now it's just a matter of getting it up there. The roof here still needs to be put up. The problem was that we had a ladder snap. So we only had one ladder and we couldn't do that, like with one person on the ground, one person up. The roof is too high. We couldn't get the panels up. So we bought the second ladder to do that as well. The new garden structure hasn't turned up yet, but it's on its way. And all that's coming this week as well. So I will share all that as we go along. But yes, so let me have a look at what I've got here in footage for the bread making, and I'll see what I want to share. So as I said, I did two different types of dough. I did the standard one that I'm doing. So this is basically the light brioche rolls, but turned into a baguette style. It's slightly less enriched than the light brioche, but not by much, only a little bit, like a slight drop in water, a slight drop in oil, things like that. And that's what I've been going with and using to make into the baguettes. So I just mixed up the standard ratios of it with the water and the oil, salt, bit of sugar, yeast, and the flour, and the coconut cream, and got it all mixed together in like I normally would. I have no idea what I was talking about here or what else was going on, or whether there's silence in between each of these items. So, you know, I'm having to just do what I do and go back to doing the whole voiceover thing, which is really not something I wanted to go back to. But anyway, so it's basically the light brioche rolled recipe, reduced sugar, a little bit of reduced cream, a little bit of reduced oil, but basically the recipe that's on the website. And then I just stuck it on the KitchenAid and got it kneading for a good amount of time. It's warm. It's been warm the last couple of days, so I used just water straight out of the Berkeys. No heating of it of any sort, because things are going to proof pretty quickly. And the tin of coconut cream was straight off the shelf as well. So we just got it all in the bowl, got it on the KitchenAid, and kneading for a good 5 to 10 minutes. Once it was done, it was still pretty tacky. So this is the whole thing, is that it's like the light brioche dough is quite sticky to the touch. It's quite tacky. It's quite hard to work with. Once it's proof for a little while, it's a lot easier to handle, but it is still a very loose dough, especially when you're trying to get a specific shape out of it. It lends itself really well to the nice balls of the buns, because you're putting lots of tension on it to create those balls. But for baguettes, it was causing a few issues when it was going in the baguette pan, because there's less structure to hold it in place in the baguette pan. But this is what I've been doing, and I have been enjoying the result of it. So this was the first batch coming out of the bowl and into the Canberra container to proof. And then I went ahead and I mixed a second batch. This is what the second batch looked like. It's definitely less tacky. It's not sticking to my fingers as much, but it's still pretty wet. It's still pretty loose, still pretty, you know, fairly high hydration. But I had dropped those quantities just that little bit more, dropped a little bit less water, a little bit less oil and things like that. Obviously I told what I was doing when I was doing it, and now I don't really know. So I'm going to have a play with this. But it's one of these things I say all the time when I release a bread recipe, like I've got the brioche rolls on the website, and I've got the pizza dough on the website and things like that. That was many months, years, whatever, of working out exactly what worked for me, and to make it work every single time. No matter the season, no matter anything else, I wanted it to be really consistent before I shared it, because there's nothing worse than sharing a recipe that you watch someone make and it works for them, and then when you go to make it yourself, there's no way it works. It doesn't come together, and it looks nothing like what you did. So again, it'll be a few more goes of making this before I share the recipe as such, the alterations that I've made, but it is basically in between the baguette rolls and the light brioche rolls, and it's not as sticky, but it's still a higher hydration. It's still a little bit wetter, still a little bit sticky, but not as sticky. I was talking too about my KitchenAid. So I mentioned the other week that my KitchenAid is playing up a little bit. It's not running quite as well as it should. It's making some noise and it's heating up a little bit, and got told that I should try packing it with grease. Apparently that's something you need to do. I haven't done it yet. I need to find a video. Apparently Living Homestead Living, whatever it was, I used to watch them many years ago, has a video about it. So I need to find that, send that to Darryl and ask him to do that for me, just, you know, so I don't have to do it, basically. And we'll see if that works, because I did look at some options. People said, you know, maybe get one of the commercial planetary mixers or commercial spiral mixers and things like that. I don't know that I want anything larger at the moment, especially not while the kitchen's still not done. I even looked at potentially the next KitchenAid up. So mine's only like a 5-quart KitchenAid bowl lift, but they have a like a commercial, a pro, that's 8-quart, that's a bit bigger and a bit more powerful and things like that, and I considered that. I don't know yet. I'll see how I go. It would be nice to be able to make some slightly bigger batches of dough, but at the same time, it's not really that necessary. So we will see if I can get this working well again, then we will just stick with that. But if I have to replace it, then I'll have to do some more research before it comes to that point. Once the first lot of dough was proofed, I pulled it out to shape. Now, I oiled my board rather than putting flour on it, because we're going to try and not introduce too much extra flour, because the whole point is to keep this a nice, loose and high hydrated dough. And it fell out of the container pretty cleanly, so it's, you know, it's at a good point, but you can tell that it spreads and it's pretty loose. But I pulled that one out to shape up, and I did all the normal that I do. I just scraped it all out and tried not to get it all down my front. And I bought this new Grand Designs dough scraper thing. It had 2 pieces. It's got like a scraper and a cutter that came in the one thing. It was like $5 on clearance at, what is it, like Victoria's Basement or something. I got an email from them, and they had like the faux Stanley drink bottle things for $5 each, and the kids needed new drink bottles this year. So I bought them the drink bottles and grabbed this as well because it was on clearance, but I really don't like the shape of it. It's really quite awkward. It's got the lip on it, and anyway, I bought it and I won't recommend it. So I just pulled all the dough together, did a few coil folds and stuff just to get a bit more tension on it, just to make it easier to handle, introducing a bit more oil as needed to make sure that it would work for me, and then divided it up. And all I'm going to do is put it into the baguette pans, and the idea with this dough and with that whole light brioche factor is that you don't create too much tension. We're not trying to push the bubbles out too much. We're not trying to tighten the crumb too much or anything like that. This must be where I commented that I wasn't real keen on the cutter, but anyway. So all I did was I divided it up into, I think I did 8 of them out of this batch, 200 odd grams maybe, and just rolled them into the baguette shapes, but a nice loose, without punching it down as such, flat but rolled. It was, you know, that sort of thing. And I'm pretty sure while I was doing this, I was discussing the fact that because I brought up the drink bottles and buying the kids new drink bottles for the year, discussing the fact that not everyone would do that. Like, some people would be really good at keeping things from year to year, but it's really not a forte of ours, not in our living situation, not in the temperament of my children, and just in general. And it's not a good thing, but it is what it is. And someone had commented recently about how I never seem to finish anything, and how maybe I needed to make some lists and you know, try and get jobs done and things like that. And I just wanted to say that I do have lists. I have many dozens of lists, many dozens of lists. I make them constantly. I assess them. I tick them off. I add them to new lists. I discuss the fact that this needs to be done and that needs to be done. But you know what? My children don't read my lists, and they don't care about my lists. And so writing a list doesn't work if no one else follows them, and you're responsible for everyone else as well. So whilst I try really hard to get things done and I try really hard to stay on task, I'm not very good at it. There's a lot going on, and it shows in things like the drink bottles as well. I'm pretty sure I bought the kids drink bottles for Christmas last year, but because they don't use them too much in winter, I have no idea what half the lids are or anything else. We don't have proper storage, and so when I saw them on clearance for $5 each, these Stanley style ones, I just decided to buy the kids more. I have to go through all their clothing at the moment because we've changed of seasons, and when I go through all their clothing, I will probably have to buy a whole lot more summer shorts and stuff too. A while back, someone commented about the amount of underwear that I buy the small children as well, because it occasionally comes up in the grocery videos and stuff. And I have 3 boys all in the same size underwear, and like, I only shop half a dozen times a year. So if I'm buying underwear 2 or 3 times a year for 3 children, that's really not that much. It must seem like it, but it really isn't. And because the kids are all, you know, the same sort of size and stuff too, I do end up buying like summer clothing and winter clothing every year in a decent quantity, because they all grow in and out of it at the same rate. So this shop, I definitely have to go to Kmart and buy a bunch of cotton shorts and t-shirts and stuff, but I'm going to go through their wardrobes before I go shopping, just to make sure that I'm not doubling up. But anyway, Squirrel there. This is that first batch of dough, so all I'm going to do is just shape it all up into the baguette pans and get it ready to go in the oven. This was the second batch of dough, so you can see it hasn't sort of lifted quite as much either, so it's a little less proofed, which is handy for handling. It still came away from the bowl quite well though, but it also isn't spreading quite as much, so it's lovely and airy still, but it's holding its shape a little bit better, and it's just got a little bit more structure to it, a little bit less hydration, a little bit more structure. So I'm pretty happy with it actually. I liked that it was just that little bit easier to handle. It was just that little bit easier to shape. The texture was just a little more firm, a little less wet, and it seemed to be nice to work with that little bit of variation. So I'm definitely going to have to make that again and figure out the ratios and stuff. I kept on picking up bits of we've got wattles at the moment at this season. There's wattles everywhere, and because there's no walls on my kitchen, the little wattle flowers end up in and on everything all the time. Luckily, none of us have any problems with significant allergies or anything to them. So I just did the same thing. I pulled all the dough into, coil folded it a few times just to get a little bit of tension on it, using a little bit of oil to make sure that it wasn't quite as sticky as, you know, it had been before. And then we shaped it. And did the same sort of thing. I did sort of 200 gram lots, I think, and I was putting it on a baking tray instead of on the baguette pans, trying to create the shape to just sort of fit nicely on the baking trays, so that I could just do it that way as another option rather than having it just on the baguette pans. But I think this would work better on the baguette pans than the other stuff did anyway, because the other stuff tends to sort of overflow a little bit, because it's that bit looser, whereas this has that little bit more structure to it. So all I did was I did the same thing, trying not to punch too much air out of it, flattened it out into a rectangle and rolled it. But I did create a little bit more tension on this one. As I was folding it in, I was creating a little bit more of a pushback on it, a little bit more tension against the board, just trying to keep it a little bit with a little bit more of a outer structure, because it's going on the pan. It's not sitting in the baguettes, whereas the baguettes create some structure to it because of the shape of them. These are all just sitting on pans, so they just needed that little bit more of a tight texture and structure to the outside of them. So this batch of dough actually fit really nicely on these 2 trays, 6 per tray. So I'm pretty happy with that actually. I'm pretty happy with the ratios, with the amount that it fits and things like that. The only problem was my timing. So the ones on the baguette trays are already in the oven while these ones are proofing, and they're gonna overproof just a touch probably, but that's life. It's the temperature we're in. We could potentially throw them in the fridge to just, you know, stall them a little bit. But yeah, I'll just have to figure out that timing. I might have to leave a little bit of time between mixing the 2 different batches or something. I don't know, but I was pretty happy with these. This is what they looked like when they came out of the oven. So pretty darn perfect. I am really, really happy with the ratio of these. I probably could make them even a little bit smaller. I probably could have spread them out between 3 trays even, and they would have just ended up a little bit flatter, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but really happy with those, and they will make great garlic bread. And then the first batch was the normal stuff. So the flaw with them is that they end up sort of escaping the baguette trays a little bit, and they end up sort of overflowing the sides, and the shape ends up a little bit mishappen. Some of them have a bit of a blowout because you're not sort of as rigid with getting them nice, you know, firm skins, but they're just lovely and soft and so very tasty. So lots and lots of bread for the next few days, some to go in the freezer probably. And I like making it in bulk like this and having it for a few days or having it in the freezer. So both ways worked really well today. So then I took you out the back to show you the back patio that we have bought the stuff for. So we bought all the opal orb polycarbonate roofing materials, something nice and lightweight and easy to put up the top there. And then we just bought treated pine to line everything. Again, nice and easy to, you know, lightweight, easy to construct, easy to, you know, put together, easy to screw together. It goes together easily. It doesn't split when you're nailing it or screwing it or whatever else. 140 mils for against the fascia and on the posts, and then we've got 90 by 45s to go in the joist hanger, to rafter hangers, and then some 70 by 35s to go as the battens for the thing. We concreted these posts in, but originally we were intending to use the insulated panels, which probably they didn't need to be as solidly, and we probably would have done it a little bit more solidly if we had realized this is what we were going to do. We did buy this screen gate for the back, and it's so flimsy. It's not going to work. It needs extra framing to fit, and that was a poor buy. Don't recommend them either. All my seedlings are going well, though the nights are still dropping down to 3-4 degrees, and that means that some of the seedlings are not coping with the cold nights, and I haven't set up any heat matting or anything because I was hoping it would get warmer quicker, but it hasn't so far. But we're getting there. You know, I'm going to start a bunch more. All the temperatures are forecast to be over 10 for the next couple of weeks, and all the fruit trees are doing well. We've got the Granny Smith is, you know, starting to really leaf up, and the cherry in the forefront there, and I do have a few more bits and pieces ordered as well. Even the trees that got damaged by the geese have got some greening on them, so that's really nice as well. It's so good to see that they're starting to recover from that damage and that we didn't lose them, because they were purchased on a whim, but at the same time they were still purchased. We also got the trailer completely emptied of rubbish. So we have been, because of all the rubbish issues, not having the local bins and everything else, we have had rubbish piling up. And because of that, this trailer has been full of stuff. We still have piles of useful stuff lying around, but all the cardboard at least is out in the garden to be spread out in the pathways. All the actual rubbish is on the back of the ute for Darryl to take to the tip before he drops the ute off to be repaired, and anything else has been, you know, moved where it needs to be, and at least this trailer is empty again. Not a good thing for it to sit there with rubbish on it and potentially rust and things like that. We also bought the extra roofing to go this front section here. So this is our water transfer station, and this little alcove here leads in towards that new room, but we just have a metal wall and some tarp up there because it doesn't have a roof, so it leaks. Like there's water ingress, and it makes it really hot, and in summer it's going to be really bad. So we bought enough of a few extra sheets of the roofing and a few extra rafters and joists and stuff so that we can put a small roof out the front here as well, and then a door, and then that way we can open it wide, have good airflow, and be able to walk straight out of there to get to our water transfer as well. this is what the inside of the bread looked like. Both worked out really well. Both had a fairly tight crumb. Both have very soft. Neither of them are crumbly. They're both nice and moist. So the only difference really is how they hold their shape in baking. And I think I like the slightly less hydrated dough for that shape, though I would like them a little flatter because that's a lot of bread in one go, whereas when they're flatter like this, then you slice them that way and then you garlic bread them, you toast them, and then you cut them in half again and you're eating a bit less bread because they're flatter. So I think I would reduce the quantity of dough per of those and maybe have them like 3 trays full instead of 2, just to keep them a little bit less dough per sandwich. But I was really, really happy with both of those. So that was my Sunday squirrel, except that I'm repeating it, and I don't know if I've covered everything, and I don't know if I've said things that I didn't say or what, because, you know, it's always hard. I have to figure out the Ninja Creamy video now, and that will be the next thing. That was going to be the next one released. We'll see how we go with that. And we do have a hamper this Saturday as well. Shopping, Darryl's away this weekend as well. And groceries are still a couple of weeks away. It ends up being 7 weeks between this one and then the next one before Christmas, because I just couldn't afford to go more than that, basically. Budget-wise, that is the only way I could swing it, is 7 weeks and 7 weeks before Christmas, and hopefully we'll just make it work. Still not sure what I'm doing about whether I take trailer or not or what. In summer, I normally get a lot of clearance fruit. So like, you know, last summer at one point I got like 10 trays of mangoes for $10 each, and it was amazing, and we're still eating through that mango now in our smoothies and stuff. And I really hate the idea of just not having enough space and having to say no, especially when I'm only going twice more before Christmas. But the only way I can have enough space is to take the trailer, and that trailer is such a pain in the bum to take, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, we'll see. But for the moment, I think that's about it. And this video is all over the place, and I hate voiceovers. I was really glad to leave them behind, but that's what's had to be. And I will see you guys in the next one. Maybe we'll get an extra one out this week to try and figure things out, and I don't know. It's thrown me. It's really thrown me. This extra couple of hours of work that I didn't plan on having to do to get the video out, and now I have to go and edit all this. And anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.